Number 19, cracking inside the top 20. We have a player who doesn't seem to be valued on his team. He's not never talked about when it's talking about future goals for this team. He's always thrown into trade conversations. We have Karis LeVert, who's done nothing wrong with his career in Brooklyn. I think he's gotten better every year, and he's coming off of a career year. It's crazy how we jumped from someone like RJ, who was an inefficient 14 point per game scorer, to someone who's very proven to be an 18 point per game scorer on a playoff team year over year. But that just goes to show how much of a jump there is to get past the top 20 spot.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, looking at Karis LeVert, he's a guy who pretty much down the category stats, he's borderline, he's top 15 in most of them. I mean, he's a guy who is fifth in points with 18.7, like you mentioned. He's actually tied for fifth in assists among shooting guards with 4.4. He was tied for first in offensive rebounding for shooting guards with 1.1. So it's not a guy, like you said, who does a whole lot wrong. And it does feel maybe a bit of a shame to some people that he is so low on the list. It's really just a facet of there is so many good players at shooting guard, like we mentioned, and we don't know how much Karis LeVert is even going to have opportunities to shoot the ball this year. Where last year,
That's the big thing with me.
exactly. Where last year, a lot of it came from the fact that Kyrie was out for most of the year, Durant was out the whole year, and it was really guys like Harris LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, and Jared Allen's team. Whereas this year, it's obviously Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving's team. If something happens again, of course, Karis LeVert has full potential to be a 20 point per game, 19, whatever it is, point per game guy. It's just a matter of like, I don't feel like he's going to get the chance to this year.
I think he would if he got traded to Houston.
Oh, absolutely.
But on none of that Brooklyn team, Kyrie and Durant, they both play ISO ball. They both have already said that they're going to play ISO ball this year. They're both going to get 25 points per game. That limits a lot of the tertiary players, not even the secondary players. The secondary player is Kyrie Irving. So it's really going to take away a lot of the shots he's been attempting. He's been taking more and more year over year because they've needed him to. They needed a guy to score, a guy to get buckets. Last year, they didn't. Kyrie got hurt, and then they needed people like Dinwiddie, Harris, and LeVert to show up and play ball, and they did. And LeVert did nothing wrong. He actually deserves to probably be much higher for ranking on results of last year's performances. He is much likely, probably closer to top 15. I know it does get very, very competitive ahead of him right now in the list that we've compiled. But with that being said, LeVert had a fantastic year last year. If he stays on Brooklyn, I just don't see him putting up the same kind of numbers, the same kind of career year. That's not to say if he goes to another team that he can't even improve on this and keep proving us wrong and keep being a better player. I just don't see it on that Brooklyn team with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what it goes to. It's mainly a facet too of as good as Karis LeVert was last year, he does play a lot of iso ball himself, where he does really need to have the ball in his hands to really do something, I find. He's not the
Yep.
greatest off-ball shooter. He's not the most efficient shooter, whether it's
He'll
three-point.
he'll get more efficient next year because he'll take less shots.
Yeah, but he definitely, like I said, he's best when he has the ball in his hands because he
Yeah.
is a good facilitator. He is good at getting to the net. He's good in terms of his ball handling regarding actually being able to make a move and getting by a guy. It's just a facet of two. Like we said, Kyrie Irving is the same player. Kevin Durant, when he gets to slow the game down, same thing. So who knows how much time LeVert will get to do that? Do I think he's gonna drop substantially? No. I mean, at worst, he's gonna go down probably like 15 points per game. Might even if we could even see him around the same. I just don't think in that offense he's going to really thrive and get much better either.
And that's exactly where my train of thought is at as well. I think he's personally going to get traded this year, so this whole conversation might be mute because I think he's a much better player in a different system, one that is more similar to how he was last year. But until then, I just don't think there's enough touches going around. So I still see him top out in the top 20. If he's still with Brooklyn by the end of the year, he could even fall under the top 20.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say player wise, there's a few people above him that we're going to see that Levert's a better player then. But again, in terms of what I think we're going to see this year, if he doesn't get traded, like you said, the performance just isn't going to be as great as the guys ahead of him.
Yeah, exactly. With that being said, so moving on from Karis LeVert